My next guest was on earlier in the day. It's so important that we talk to him again because he was part of a post-production panel and he is a very esteemed gentleman. Dale Granh, thank you so much for joining us. Check out Dale Granh's app, by the way, on the App Store, the iTunes App Store. It's amazing. You can find out just a little bit about color timing, color grading, and have some fun, and he'll do some tutorials and teach you some lessons. I know you said you want to get into teaching, so that's a good way to start.
It actually is a good way to start, to allow people to see that there's a different way to look at color, you know, and that's kind of our platform, is to teach people how to look at an image and decide what is right and what's wrong about it.
Well, you're a true artist. You really are.
Well, thank you.
And you change the film so much. You work on film, but when you get the film, you make it come to life. And I want to talk about that for a second because I was on here the other day talking about how we don't, you know, I don't want to shoot flat for video now. It's the new thing because it takes too much time to color correct, and I don't want to have to go in and have to color correct. And that is very true. I do a lot of video journalism, a lot of quick turnaround stuff, and I think that the cameras are really good and the colors are really good, but they're only telling part of the story. And so I don't want to have to color correct. And I think that that's a good thing, to not want to have to color correct. But I think color correction is very important. I don't want to slight that when I say that. And so what you do as an art, and it changes the entire feel and the story of, and it helps tell the story. So can you talk about how important color timing is to a film and how much of a difference it makes?
Right. Well, it's very, very important because as you're watching a film, subliminally, you're not noticing it, unconsciously you're not noticing it, but the color is affecting you. The color and the density of the shot will be affecting you. It's like if you're in a spooky kind of a cave situation, you don't want it to be bright and golden. You want it to be dark and mysterious and maybe lacking in a little bit of color. You want to try and tell a story with the story that's being told in film. So you want to tell the story in color by making sure that all of the feelings that they're trying to portray in the movie or in that particular part of the film, that they make sense with what you're looking at, you know. So like if you're out in the desert, you want it to be hot and white and bright, you know, and most people bring on that feeling, and you'll see that. You'll react to that naturally.
Most people think at home, I think, at least who are not professionals, think that it's shot that way, it's lit that way. But the truth is, it's not necessarily lit that way, and it's not necessarily shot that way. And a lot of times, the desert is a set in Hollywood.
Correct.
A lot of times, the dark, dungy cave is a little thing, a tunnel they built somewhere.
Right.
And so you actually make it come to life and help tell and hide that this is actually a set and help tell this. And you're a master, and you work with Steven Spielberg and all these other great guys.
Wonderful.
And you've done Saving Private Ryan, and one of my favorite films, Minority Report.
Right. Wonderful films.
Yeah, and so tell me a little bit about the process of being an artist and doing this, because it's not just, oh, okay, you know, especially color grading now is digitally is so easy.
Right.
You push a couple of buttons, you do a couple of things, and it's done.
Right. Well, in my day, the client was never there when you were actually doing the color correction. What you would do is you would the client would view the film with you, and he would give you his opinion of it, and you would ask questions like, how does this feel to you? Is it dark enough? Is it too blue? How do you like the flesh tone? What is this telling you in the story? And he'll direct you, the client will direct you in what he's trying to bring about. And then what you need to do is you need to try and turn that information into a visual. And you have to practice in order to do it. It takes a skill to understand how to look at an image and where it can go, because you need to know what direction to go in and if it'll get there before you try. Otherwise, you're wasting everybody's time. So.
And how do you do the process? Like, how do you physically do it? It boggles my mind because I know how you do it digitally, but I have no idea how you.
Well, you actually have to make what they call a blind correction. If you look at an image and you say to yourself, well, this needs 3 points of red and 4 points of density. And in the next shot, oh, it only needs 2 points of red and 1 point of density. So you make a correction on the one shot, you move to the next shot, you make a correction on that, but you don't see any of these. You just put them down as printer lights. Then they make a print, and you see the results of your work, and if it was right or if it was wrong. And then you do another print. And if you go much past 3 to 4 prints, you're starting to waste money for the company and starting to waste, you know, time for the production, and you may not meet your deadlines. So you have to be able to know where to go right away.
And you work a lot with the director of photography, right?
Yes, and a lot of times they'll tell you what they're trying to accomplish, and that they need you to push it a little bit farther. Most people have an idea of what they want their film to look like, but when a color timer takes it over, and if they're given a license to put a pass on it, like what I would do, is I'd say, let me put my pass on it first, my interpretation of it, and then you look at it, and then decide whether you like it or not. And my interpretation was always usually more than what they thought it could be. So that's how I was successful, to make it look better than they thought it could look.
That's terrific.
And,
that's terrific. So, and you also work closely with the director, like Spielberg.
Yes, absolutely.
And what's that like? You have, I know you told a story before when we had you on before. Can you tell another story? What's it like to work with him?
With Steven? Well, I guess I can tell you, it's a real quick story, but when we were Saving Private Ryan, the cinematographer was not able to be there with us, so I had to do it with Steven, and he was not used to being in a color correction scenario. So when we went through the entire process, going back and forth and looking at the film and making the color corrections, he was learning about color timing, and he really enjoyed that. So at the end, when we finished, he stood up and he gave me a hug and shook my hand and said, "Thank you for adding your artistry to my film." And for me, that was an amazing thing, you know, that he felt that I had added something to this magnificent film that I was just blown away by.
The greatest compliment you could ever get.
Yeah,
I mean, a guy like Steven.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
so it doesn't get much better than that.
And what's he like to work with? Is he easy? Is he tough? Does he push you harder than you think you can be pushed? I love people who push me harder than I think that I can even be pushed, and because I push myself so hard.
Usually, I tried to be ahead. I tried to show him always something that was more than what he thought he was going to see. So usually every time he left me, he was saying, "This is better than I thought it would be," and that was kind of the key for me, you know, in all of my films. Try and make it something that they'd never seen before,
right?
You know, and
well, you've done a great job.
Successful.
You've had such a great career. You've done such a great job. You are such an artist. What about the art? How do we keep it alive? How do we teach new people? It's really important.
Well, they really need to look at the image. They really need to understand and be able to dissect the image and know what's right with it and what's wrong with it. If they don't, it's kind of like cooking. If you never taste your food, how are you going to know it's any good? You know, if it's got too much salt in it or what. So you really have to do the visual work. You really have to understand images and work with them and play with them. Only experience can give you that type of ability.
And what about a project that you got and you blew yourself away, where you were like, wow, I can't even believe that I did this, and you took a shot that was maybe even terrible and you made it perfect?
Golly, that's hard to say. There were an awful lot of films. Well, when we did the Redux on Apocalypse Now, and we went through the dye transfer process, that was pretty impressive. We were able to correct some of the things that weren't right in the beginning when the first release, and really bring out some detail and throw in good color saturation, and that was a good experience. So that worked out better than I thought it was going to work out. It accepted it better than I thought.
And when a film has a lot of CGI, like Minority Report,
right,
is it harder or easier?
It is harder because you have to take your lowest common denominator basically and work from that. So if your CG is poor quality, then you make that look as good as you can, and then you blend everything else into that.
Thank you so much, Dale Granh. You're phenomenal. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and honor to have you on here.
Thank you.
Check out Dale Granh's app. It's like $3.99. Totally worth it on the iTunes App Store.